These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's The Beautiful Bag podcast. I am your host, LeeAnne Hayden, and this week we are joined by Raphaela over in the UK, which is awesome. I love talking to everybody from other countries just because, guys, this is not just a thing here in the US or just in the UK. It is a worldwide thing. I know the stats here in the US is just about 1 million people in an ostomy bag here in the US, and the stats are way more than that if you look at the whole entire world. But Raphaela is, she's coming to us. She's 2 years ago, her whole life changed. So I'm going to let her share her story on that. But she also was a flight attendant for 29 years. And she also has the Stoma for Life radio show over in the UK. So make sure that you're tuning into that too. So Raphaela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, LeeAnne. I'm absolutely thrilled to be on your show, not just as a guest, but I'm an active listener of your podcast as well.
Well, thank you for listening. And I appreciate when everybody says, I'm listening to your show and these stories are changing my life. So the more stories, guys, that we have out there in the world, the more lives we can change. So if you have your story, make sure to reach out. So Raphaela, let's talking about that. Let's dig into your story. Why don't you start to share? Because it was only 2 years ago this whole thing started for you.
Absolutely. 2 years ago, I was totally oblivious what was actually awaiting, what was actually ahead in my life. But I have to sort of start a couple of months before that, because I, as you mentioned, was a flight attendant for 29 years. And my life was actually pretty okay. I mean, I was traveling the world. I was absolutely loving flying. The company that I worked for actually made it possible for you to extend your flying time after 55, because usually you would go on to early retirement at the age of 55. And they, a couple of years prior to me turning 55, actually changed it. So I knew I was going to be flying up to, well, maybe 60, 65. And I loved the job. I absolutely loved the job. And so in my mind, everything was fine until COVID came. And I must say, COVID changed the airline industry from one day to the next. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see planes grounded for months on end, and yes, airline staff sitting at home and doing nothing. So that was my life from one day to the next. I had this awesome job, and then all of a sudden I was sitting at home. Now, my previous life, if I could call it that, I was a graphic designer, and I'd always freelanced as a graphic designer during actually my whole flying career. Once my children were born, I went onto a part-time scheme. That meant I had one long-haul flight and one short haul tour for most of the time that my kids were small. So I was able to work as a graphic designer as well. So when COVID hit, I thought, no, this is not what I'm enjoying anymore. I'm not enjoying the flying bit anymore. It's not nice anymore. I'm going to concentrate on being a full-time graphic designer. So I used that time to actually get back into the swing of things. Although I had a few clients lined up, and so I was pretty much set. But I mean, we all know COVID was not easy, and personally, I must say I went through a very difficult time during that part of my life, full of anxiety, full of worries, and no self-care whatsoever. Now, the self-care part is something very big it's very big in my life now, but it was never big or an issue prior to me being diagnosed. So the airline industry gets you to take a medical checkup. Like once a year, you go for a small medical, and then I think every 4 years you go for a big medical. And I had one of those, and I had a home testing kit with a fit test where you send in the stool sample, and that came back as a negative. So with that, I mean, I was totally lost for words, because for me, I was leading a healthy life. I'd changed my diet once my husband was diagnosed 10 years prior to me being diagnosed with cancer, but a completely different cancer, which fortunately now he's cancer-free. But because of his diagnosis, we changed our eating and lifestyle habits completely. So I was leading a fairly healthy lifestyle, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently not. Apparently my self-care wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So
isn't it amazing how, because when I was diagnosed with my cancer too, I was a holistic practitioner. I ate organic, all the things that you just said, right? You're leading a life, exercising, working out, doing all the right things. You know, so it's not always when it's cancer, it's not always because you're not doing the right things, right? And self-care is a huge piece that I don't think any of us realize how important it is to be doing before you get sick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was really, it was nothing I'd actually ever practiced because I was always functioning. And now in my previous career, obviously as a flight attendant, you always put up a nice front. You have to sort of just function no matter what time of day it is. And you never question your own body because it always works. But one day, you know, your body will give you signs, and those are the important signs to look out for. So when I was presented with this negative test, I said, okay, I have to take it through to my GP. Now, my GP wanted to do, they wanted to do their own testing, and they diagnosed me with hemorrhoids before they actually did a second home testing, or the FIT test before the second one. So I thought, no, this can't be hemorrhoids, because like I said, I changed my diet. I was vegan for 10 years and I knew how my bowel movement was. I knew, you know, this is not correct. There were signs there that were definitely alarming for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I insisted on having another test done, which also came back positive or negative, whichever way you want to look at it. But it was definitely something to be concerned about. And then my GP actually said, and so what do we do now? And I said, well, I would like a colonoscopy now. I would like this investigated, because she'd diagnosed me with hemorrhoids and she didn't quite understand that somebody would want a colonoscopy. And I said, well, I mean, it just didn't resonate with me, you know, this diagnosis.
All right. So how crazy it is that you have to advocate for yourself of what you want when your tests are coming back with something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And your doctor's saying, well, what do you want to do? And you have to say colonoscopy. Guys, this is important. This is extremely important that we all understand the advocacy for ourselves and understanding how our bodies work and what we need to have happen. Sometimes we do have to tell our doctors exactly what needs to happen. I hear this more and more every one of these episodes.
It's scary. It's crazy. And yes, like you said, you've actually got to stand up for yourself, because in actual fact, nobody's going to fight for your life like yourself. You know, to a doctor, you are obviously a patient, but you know, it doesn't go beyond that. So you have to yourself take the initiative to find out, okay, what's really wrong with you. And I firmly believe listening to my inner voice is what actually saved me in the end, because I knew intuitively that there was something else. I didn't think it was bowel cancer. I think in the States you say colon cancer, but we call it bowel cancer. So I never in a million years thought I would be diagnosed with that. But okay, to get back to that initial colonoscopy, which then was scheduled very quickly, fortunately, even though it was COVID times. Now, I'd mentioned that I did think of changing my career because of the COVID, and I'd actually given in early retirement. So that part of that chapter was already closed, and I was gearing up to actually start my new career as a graphic designer. So okay, I'll have to have a colonoscopy. All right, I did go for it. And actually during the colonoscopy already, I could see there was something not quite right. And I asked the person that performed it, you know, what is this? And he said, oh, it's just a polyp. And I said, well, then just remove it. He said, no, it's far too big. You have to go in for surgery to have that removed. So he did a biopsy during the colonoscopy. And it works like this here in the UK, that once you are once you're actually on their radar and there's something really wrong with you, they act very quickly, which I find absolutely reassuring. Also, because, I'd never been confronted with something this serious. So about a week later, I received a letter in the mail for me to come in for an MRI and a CT scan. So those things were scheduled within a week of my colonoscopy. And yes, then I had them. And then another letter came for another CT scan for the second one with the contrasting liquids. And I didn't click, I didn't know why would they want to do it and investigate it again. And then I got another letter saying, okay, I've got to go to the consultant to see them at the at the hospital. And it was actually, like I said, it was COVID times, and my husband accompanied me during that time. And when I got into the surgeon's office or the consultant's office, all I saw was this very kind-looking man behind a mask. I mean, all I saw was these kind eyes, and next to him was a cancer nurse. So I still didn't click.
Really?
I still didn't click. And he said to me, so Raphaela, do you know why you're here? I said, yes, I've got a polyp that you've got to remove. And he said, no, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you've got stage 3 bowel cancer. So, yeah, I mean, fortunately, I had my husband with me because, it was, I'm sure it's different for everybody. But it's like time standing still. Everything is sort of quiet, very quiet.
And you don't know what to say, and you don't know what to ask.
But, after he said that, a few seconds later, he said, it hasn't spread to any of your organs, as far as we can see. And to me, that was like, okay, all right. And then my flight attendant emergency training mind kicked in, where I thought, okay, all right, now we've got a situation. We've got to analyze this now. What are my options? How am I going to get out of here alive? I mean, that's how I would do any emergency evacuation in an airplane as well.
Yeah. So it's good that you had that training, right? Your brain just kicked in. So what were the options? What did they say?
Well, he said to me the position that the cancer was, because it was actually rectal cancer. I mean, he said it was so far down that he said if they only have that, they can only see once they open me up. But he says the way it's positioned, it's most fairly unlikely that I will not come out without a stoma.
Okay. Because
of where it was positioned.
So what were your feelings to those words?
I had never heard of the word stoma in my life. I didn't even know what it was. So he took out a pen and paper and he explained it. And of course, once he explained it, I knew exactly what it was, but I'd never, ever heard the word stoma used before. So
we're always like ostomy. We got to remember stoma. And sometimes it was almost like later on, I'm like, wait a minute, why do we call it a stoma? And then like a stoma is the opening of it. That's what it is. It's the opening of the intestines outside of your stomach. And I'm like, oh, that's it. So what's the ostomy?
Yeah.
Like the whole thing.
Yes, absolutely. So he was being very graphic and he was being very patient with me. But he said, I would recommend a stoma. He said, because I could be sitting here with a stoma and you wouldn't even see it. He said, because at that stage I was obviously still a flight attendant. He said, you could actually also pursue your career. It wouldn't hinder you at all, not in the least. So I first had to get my head around it, because he said one could also perform the surgery in such a way that you don't have a permanent stoma, but you will live your life near a toilet forever. And I mean, that is just no option. I mean, I was just about 55 and I wasn't ready to, say goodbye to the life I was leading. Not at all, So he said, okay, we'll have to review your case. We're doing that the following day to see if you need chemo or radiotherapy before we actually have the surgery. And he said, and then you let us know if you're ready for a stoma or not.
Okay.
And I think I actually decided there and then, but obviously I had to speak to my husband as well. But by the time I got home, I already knew I was going to go and have that done, because there was no way in my mind that I would, first of all, live near a toilet for the rest of my life.
Right.
And then perhaps they might not even catch everything. Then you go through all this, you have the surgery, and then because of your vanity, they miss something or something cannot be cut out. No, it was just no option for me.
And you said because of our vanity. And I think all of us can attest to that, right? Because who really wants to have a poop bag hanging off your stomach? I mean, that's the reality of what we have, right? Who wants that? And vanity is a huge piece to it, but you have to put that aside. We have to put that aside. And so I'm glad that, you chose to do that. And so you have your surgery successful. They get all the cancer.
They did.
And so all of this was 2 years ago. What have you been doing with the last 2 years?
I said to a friend of mine not so long ago, ever since I was diagnosed, my life is in focus. I've got focus on my life. Not that I actually felt my life was out of focus, but now I see it much clearer. And after I was diagnosed, it was 6 days for my surgery. So it all went extremely quickly. And in my mind, I only had cancer for 6 days. Because beforehand, I never knew.
Yeah.
And afterwards, when I woke up, the first thing I saw was the kind eyes of my surgeon. And he said, Raphaela, we got all the cancer. Everything's gone. We could cut it all away. And as far as we can see, it didn't even spread to your lymph nodes. So it came back, I think it was just before New Year's Eve, they actually phoned to say it had not spread in my lymph nodes, and it was actually a stage 2 bowel cancer.
Oh,
I needed no chemotherapy, no radiation, none of that. So
that's a blessing.
I feel so blessed. I feel I was really spared so much heartache. Even though, let's face it, like you said, it's nobody's first choice to live your life with a bag. But what are the options? A tag on your toe.
Yeah, exactly.
To put it bluntly.
There is, and the sad thing is, there are many, many people that have chosen a tag on their toe instead of living life in a bag. And it's my mission, and I know it's yours as well, and a lot of ours mission, to let people know that life does not end with an ostomy. It actually starts. It's our second chance at life, and it's not hindering. Yes, there's things we have to deal with, like sometimes bag leaks or things like that, that we have to deal with. But this is life. This is life. This is pretty great. So now you have your radio show that you just started. You said you had how many episodes so far?
3 have aired, and I've had 5 interviews, so they're all lined up now. So
that's amazing.
Early days.
Yep, early days. So the radio show is over in the UK, guys. It's called Stoma for Life. And so now are you doing your graphic, are you doing your graphic design full time? Like, is that your career?
That's my career. I'm a full-time graphic designer. I bring out a monthly online magazine, and I'm absolutely loving my life the way it is right now.
Yeah. So what things are you doing? So aside from your graphic design, aside from that's a lot between work and, and your radio show now. What other things have you been able to do?
I used to travel professionally a lot. Now I travel because I care for myself and for my husband. We do so much traveling at the moment. It's absolutely unreal. We never used to take time out for ourselves, and now we actually do. And I think that is just such a blessing, because as I mentioned, my husband is also a cancer survivor, and we both just know how lucky we are. Our children could both, they could have lost both their parents by now. And so we just embrace life. We just absolutely live our best life now. And I made it my mission, just like you, to inform and to let people know, because I don't know if you know, but when I was actually in my recovery, I was looking through the podcasts, and I came across your podcast. And I thought, wow, people actually talk about this. I was so impressed. People can talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. And it's actually a form of healing when you talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear other people's journey, it makes you reflect on your own, and it sort of empowers you also to go through all this. So I was very impressed when I came across your podcast. And yeah, so I'm following in your footsteps on this side of the pond, LeeAnne.
Oh, I love that. I love that, because the more, again, we spread awareness, the more people that are doing what we're doing, the better the world's going to be. It's just, let's just make it a better place. It's, we have right now, it's not a great place. Let's continue. Let's try and make it a better place. So where have you guys traveled? You said you've been traveling a lot for fun. What have you guys done?
Yeah. Oh, my husband and I, we've just been to Ibiza for a week.
Where's Ibiza?
Ibiza is just off Mallorca. It's in the Mediterranean.
Oh, I don't even know where Mallorca is. And I'm like,
Yes.
I'm out here going to Greece and Italy. Like, tell me.
Yeah. It's one of the Spanish islands in the Mediterranean. And
Okay.
it's a really small island, and I'd never been there, and I always wanted to, and we had the opportunity, so we went for a week in October, which was lovely because it was still about 24, 25 degrees, which is lovely. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit.
I think that's in the 70s. I think that's mid-70s, I think.
I could wear a t-shirt and we could go swimming in the sea. So
okay, there you go. All right. So yeah, it's probably upper 70s then.
And my parents live in South Africa. Now, I went to see them, I think it was 8 weeks after my surgery. Mm-hmm. So that was extremely important because I hadn't seen them all through COVID. Mm-hmm. And mind you, I mean, I did this professionally, but it was totally different when I went as a passenger with an ostomy bag. That was really, it was a bit nerve-wracking because I didn't know how was my stoma going to react during the flight. I mean, it's a long flight to South Africa. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, that all works. You can do everything,
So let's talk about that. So you are a flight attendant. You've been a flight attendant, and you just said this was the first time you got to go and do that. Mm-hmm. What did you think? What were you expecting? And then what happened?
Well, I was expecting for perhaps, with the air pressure, perhaps it could affect my digestion in a different way than I would normally experience without a bag, Mm-hmm. I thought, okay, perhaps, it might just go crazy. I don't know. Maybe the bag won't hold. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect it to go as smoothly as what it did. And I think the biggest fear was, you've got the adhesive remover. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure if I was allowed to take that on board because I thought, I have to be able to do my bag change properly. I think that was my main concern, to be able to have the tools with me in the plane to do my bag change. And I mean, the airlines are really very accommodating. If you phone any airline and you say, hey, I've got a hidden disability, or I've got to have these medical supplies with me on board, there is no way that they are not going to let you do that. So that was so reassuring to have that.
That's awesome for us to all know.
Yeah.
And I found too, because I do a lot of travel. I travel. Yeah. I'm like, I don't have travel planned until January. The whole month of December, maybe, right? I might be on a plane. Either that, I'm probably going to run to New York City, which is I would move back there in a second, if it wasn't for the kids and the grandkids. But so I travel a lot, but I literally just found out, usually you can bring in checked bag. You can bring a checked bag, not a checked bag, a carry-on and a smaller bag, right? That's usually all you're ever recommend. You can always do. You can actually bring a third bag for your stoma supplies separately that has nothing to do with the other two bags. Just so you can have all your supplies with you as well. Just for people to know.
Absolutely. I was given 10 kilos extra for hand luggage, which I thought was, I mean, it doesn't weigh that much, but it was just reassuring to know. And I always travel with all my supplies in my hand luggage. I never ever put it in the hull because I'm just too worried that, bags do go missing, and they go missing for good.
Yeah,
so
they do.
Absolutely. And I would advise anybody just to carry it all with you in your hand luggage. I think that's just, you've got peace of mind then, you've got your I mean, those are those life-saving bags. And I always say, I can live this life because of the bags, because of the quality of the bags. If I wouldn't have them, I wouldn't be smiling, at you right now.
Exactly. Well, and I am so glad that you are. And it's fun because I put bags everywhere. So if I have to check a bag, there's supplies in my check bag. There's tons more supply. Like most of my supplies are in my carry-on. And then I have supplies inside my purse. Like every bag has supplies because I flew once, got off the plane, and we were getting ready to go on a cruise right when COVID was hitting. We were going on a cruise. I get off the plane, look at my husband. I'm in Florida. And I had one bag. I forgot to pack my supplies. I don't know why I didn't think about it, but I had forgotten to pack my supplies. And, so I had to Amazon. Thank goodness for Amazon. I Amazon supplies to the hotel I was staying at, and they came right before we were supposed to board the plane. Board the ship.
My goodness, I didn't even know you could order them via Amazon. I mean, that's good to know.
You can. So in case of an emergency, and you can also go to hospitals if you're running out of supplies and just let them know. Like, if I'm traveling, I'm here, I don't even know where to get them, and most times you can get a few days worth of supplies. But but you can Amazon them overnight, guys.
Absolutely. And when I went to South Africa, obviously my mom, she was concerned with me traveling, and she found out for me as well where to get supplies in case I needed to. And it was so funny because when I was in South Africa, we all contracted COVID there. So my flight was extended. I actually stayed, I think, a week longer than expected. So I actually had to get supplies there, which was no problem. So things can happen, and it's always good to then find out, okay, where can I get supplies? And if you say Amazon, I mean, that's just incredible.
Exactly. And I was surprised when I went on there. I was like, oh, okay, here's the bags I use, here's the flanges I use, like here's everything I need, just overnight it to me, and they did. So it's been wonderful to have you on this show, Raphaela. And I always end these shows this way. If there was one thing that you would want to leave our audience with, what would that one thing be?
I think we are all stronger than we actually, that we actually think we are. Unless we get challenged, then we really know how strong we are. I think that's about the biggest lesson I've learned. And that's what a lot of my friends said, when they look at what happened and they say, how can you go through this? Yes, you can go through it because you are strong. You are really strong. And once you get challenged, you only find out how strong you are.
It's so true. It's so true. And you said it. You have to go through it. You can't go around it. Can't ignore it. You have to go through it.
No.
And take strength.
Yeah. And acceptance. I think, like you said, you've got to go through it and you've got to accept it and even embrace it, because I mean, that's just part of you now. And I think if you sort of, if you don't embrace it, and if you have a lot of, anguish or resentment towards it, it's not helping you. It's not going to help you. And I'm a firm believer, as I said, in self-care, which I practice now, and that's also a very big part of self-care. So, yeah,
it is. Well, Raphaela, thank you so much for being here with us this week. Truly has been a blessing speaking with you.
My absolute pleasure, and wonderful what you do. Carry on doing what you do. And it was lovely chatting with you, LeeAnne.
Thank you.